I think I had intrusive thoughts, undiagnosed OCD, when I was aware of my imaginary best friend, for example. You know, it just had a different and, you know, typically imaginative spin on it for a child. Like, I can remember having this kind of voice in my head that told me, you know, if I didn't, you know, walk on certain paving stones on the way up to my like mum and dad's house, that like something terrible was going to happen to them.
I still have that.
Right, exactly.
I did that probably on the way in.
Right.
That's one I can't let go of. It won't fucking go. I can't do 3 drains.
It's wild. Oh, yeah. No,
2 drains, got to say something really positive about someone.
Really?
3 drains, I will make a scene to get around it. I can't get over that
Cross
one.
the street.
I can't get over it.
a
It's
different
ridiculous.
train.
I mean, I can get over it because I walk around it.
Right.
Mentally, can't get over it.
Mentally can't go over it. Yeah, it was so interesting. When I was younger, that was just this this sort of voice in my head, this like figure that, you know, I labeled as this kind of like negative character in my life, and only post my diagnosis, and actually like well after, you know, knowing that I had OCD, did I look back on that and go, oh, that's what that was, you know. So
at what point did you think, oh, this isn't, because when you're a kid, whatever you're thinking is just your normal. So you assume maybe everyone thinks like this, or you don't have the awareness or the detachment to think this is a thought. It's just you walking around. So at what point did you assume this is a problem, actually? This is causing me stress in my life now.
Well, I was really lucky. I got access to therapy in my early teens. I was probably 14 when I first started experiencing kind of obsessive compulsive thoughts and the ruminations and intrusive thoughts. And, you know, until it was diagnosed and until I received that therapy, I just thought I was totally alone with this condition, or not even condition at that time, with this way of thinking, with this sort of defunct brain. I was so scared. And that's I think the scariest thing about, you know, any mental health issues. And you can never underestimate how alone someone can feel in their state. You know, even when you're telling someone, you know, oh, I have anxiety too, or oh, I deal with intrusive thoughts, or I have OCD. I know, because I've been there myself, 90% of the time, the other person's looking at you going, yeah, but you do, but not like me though.
Yeah.
And it may be that you are within 5 meters of someone at any given point who is experiencing the same thing or a version of that thing, or, you know, it's really quite a sad and potentially quite British expression, but it is also quite true that like misery loves company.
Yeah.
And there's some strange comfort in a way of knowing that other people are struggling too. And that's not because you want other people to be struggling, of course, but it makes you feel less alone. And there's also comfort in knowing that you can be a support to someone just as they can be a support to you, that there's opportunity for mutualistic compassion and support. And I think I took some comfort in knowing that, you know, I'm not alone. And I can also recall, you know, and obviously a lot of advances have been made in respect of the mental health conversation and how openly people talk about mental health. I can remember when I was going through it, and I mean, you know, into my late teens, maybe even early 20s, when I saw people talking openly about mental health, I'd sometimes think, oh, don't publicize that, or don't put that out in the open. Like, that's to speak to your therapist about, or your family, and of course it is a subject that you ideally want to do that with, you know, a therapist, family members, friends, anyone in your private life. But the power in also being open about it publicly, I've learned that I don't think you can underestimate how much that can potentially help someone else.
It's huge.
You know, and so I do try and speak about it as openly as possible, as scary as it is sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's a strange thing to admit all of this stuff, you know, and it's a new conversation. It's probably only the last sort of 10, maybe 15 years that anyone has been very openly talking about this stuff. And it is uncomfortable. I mean, I was diagnosed with OCD probably only about 2 years ago. And I probably only have had it for maybe, it was a bit of a reaction to stuff. So it was maybe 7, 8 years. And I didn't realise, I didn't know enough about OCD. I just thought it was like you just went around the room tapping things or whatever. You know, that cliche, you've seen it on TV and you think, and I was like, I haven't got OCD. Yeah. But it's the intrusive thoughts that are so evil and bleak. The worst bit about it being that I had no idea that my intrusive thoughts weren't fact. I assumed that if I had this idea that if I didn't, or it wasn't even if I didn't do a thing, sometimes it would just be, I had this one, I'm not even going to say it out loud, this one bleak thing that I thought, this is the outcome that's going to happen. And it's going to happen because otherwise, why would it keep coming into my head constantly?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a therapist said to me, it's not real. Like, that's simple. It's not real. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're just in a loop of that's your go-to worst case scenario thought. And it was almost hearing that was enough to go, what? Because I just assumed that was the outcome and I'm just waiting for this thing to happen now for whatever reason. And there's no logic to it, obviously. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just you've landed on that being the worst case scenario and it pops into your head fucking all the time. It's the pits. It's the pits. And like you say, hearing other people say, oh my God, and it's not just an intrusive thought of, oh, I didn't like that thought. It's makes you physically, like, you want to shake it off. It's like the worst, most uncomfortable thing ever. And I didn't even know that was OCD until someone told me, like, 3 years ago. Oh. So we do have to have these chats. We do have to talk about this stuff. And, you know, if 2-3 people listening to this go, oh, fucking hell, you know, that's actually causing me a lot of stress and I've never told anyone that.
Yeah.
Or maybe I've got OCD. You know, it's not about going and self-diagnosing yourself with everything under the sun. But I think if you can put into context these things and know that they're not real, that is helpful.
So important.
Yeah.
The distinction between fact and feeling.
It's important.
Is massive.
Yeah.
And you're so right. It's one of the cruelest aspects of OCD is I think it totally distorts that. And I think through repetition, you know, and just the constant rumination, it blurs that distinction between fact and feeling so much where you start to confuse your feelings for facts and vice versa. And you know, something I actually saw, and I want to mention them only because they you know spoke about this openly on a podcast, and I really appreciated it. And I haven't told them personally, but Jordan and Harley of Rizzle Kicks, I heard them talking, you know, as they have done, like quite openly about their mental health, and something really really interesting that I believe Jordan said about Harley, and the two of them spoke about this kind of in tandem. The really fascinating thing about OCD, and potentially one of its cruelest things, but hearing this helped me massively. So I hope if anyone else is going through it, they can also take some kind of comfort in this. One of the cruelest things about OCD is that often those intrusive thoughts and the worst thing you can imagine is the worst thing you can imagine and is something that your OCD has created precisely because it's the antithesis of how you actually feel. And it actually takes what you value most, or the version of yourself that you most want to be, your idealistic self, the way that you want to conduct yourself, your sort of idealistic behavior, and it creates a kind of subverted version of that, whereby it convinces you that the opposite is going to happen, or you are going to become the opposite of who you want to be, or you are going to behave in a way that is the most abhorrent way you could possibly imagine behaving, or the most terrible thing, you know, you could think of happening is going to happen. OCD is so cruel that it'll do that.